Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960 AM. I want to introduce to a very impressive young lady, a medical doctor. Her name is Sadaf Sheikh. I ended up meeting her through a Mississauga fashion event, and she told me that she was doing clinical research in medicine. She now practices as a researcher in diabetes and heart, but she reached out to me and she said, you know what, you've got to have a show on mental health because she's really become exposed to a lot of mental health issues. So Sadaf, how are you? Welcome to my show.
I'm doing well. Thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure. So let's just do a little bit of background. So I'm right, heart and diabetes, that's what you specialize in?
That's right. So basically focus was South Asians and heart disease and diabetes and prevention and coaching, life modification, etc. That was the basics. And we published a lot of paperwork on that with regards to what to do for individuals who are South Asian descent, who are high predisposition to heart disease and diabetes. How do we combat and or further along their lifespan in a very healthy way. So we were faced with a lot of individuals during that time period when we were doing our study of young moms that we were following as well, and noticed that there was so much mental health concerns that they had, whether it was domestic abuse and or was postpartum depression and all these things. And we were screening for these as part of our study and realized that really there is some issues that we don't really see come to the forefront because of stigma and taboo that surrounds mental health. And speaking of it, especially in the South Asian community, which is getting better, I have to say, but at that time it was something that I noted that it was very, very, hidden. And so that we brought out to the forefront a little bit. And now, so I'm doing a lot of mental health work. I run workshops for suicide prevention, mental health in general. So that's where I'm at right now. And my focus right now is going into different institutions and faith-based institutions to promote mental health teachings and create the awareness and offer the help that is required in the community.
Fantastic. And you say that you're a medical doctor, a medical researcher, and a professor. What are you a professor in?
So I teach at the Humber College. I teach nursing students, and I teach at the University of Toronto. And so it's been quite a lot of fun. I'm dispersed in many avenues. So I deal with students, and sometimes you see mental health concerns there and you kind of navigate them appropriately earlier on rather than, not being able to assist them. So it's earlier intervention is great. So I've dealt with students, I've dealt with South Asian populations, I've dealt with regular community members that are suffering as well, but very silently because they don't know where to get the help, and they're afraid that if they do talk about it, that they will be stigma, there'll be stigma around them and their being, and that's very difficult to see.
And you said you specialized in this research and looking into the South Asian community. Why? That's because you're South Asian, or what was the specific interest and focus?
So the issues were actually very important. The South Asian part is for real. That's where I'm coming from. So that is the gist of it. But there's a lot of heart disease in people that are family members, and diabetes that are prevalent because they come as a cocktail for us. And we're very high predisposition to heart disease and heart attacks and all of those things. So having said that.
Why? Is that diet related?
It's genetic related. It's diet related. It's a combination. So amongst the stratification of high risk, we are of the high risk, and amongst the high risk individuals, we have the First Nations, we've got Black Canadians, South Asians, in general. So this is stratification we have. So I'm working more on the South Asians because the population that we have in Mississauga and Brampton and just basically GTA, we've kind of zoned it in on South Asian individuals. Why? Because there's not a lot of studies done on them. So a lot of the information that we're getting is from populations that are not South Asian, so everybody else. So we're trying to do that.
You said when we were doing the intro, you mentioned the word the big six. Are there some big six issues that people have to be mindful of?
There are lots of different issues, basically. So there's general stressors. There are domestic issues, there are financial issues, there are religious issues, faith-based issues, there's, you know, gender issues. There's a whole bunch of different things that are coming to the forefront that people should be aware that these can cause issues and concerns for these individuals mental health wise, because some of the times it's not acceptable to be talking about domestic abuse, and it's not acceptable to be talking about gender differences and or you know, sexual orientation. So all these things are taboo topics. So when that happens,
within the South Asian community,
Asian populations.
Okay.
Within South Asian populations, for the most part, there we see a lot of that. And so just to create the awareness that, you know, these are basic groups of individuals that require that attention, it takes a lot of effort. I had to go through a lot of faith-based institutions to be turned down because I wanted to talk about mental health, and then finally got a breakthrough at two faith-based institutions. One is the Sayyida Khadija Center, and the other one is the Islamic Society of North America, so ISNA Canada. And so I had breakthroughs there where I was able to come in and talk about mental health and how to help individuals through spirituality and mental health well-being. So how do you promote that mental health that you want to foster within that community? A lot of these individuals were seeing lots of problems, and some of the individuals that were running faith-based institutions, they said, this doesn't exist, we're handling it, we're good. But a lot of them came forward and said, we're inundated with individuals who have mental health concerns, they're talking about suicide, all of these things are happening, we need help, we need some backup, and we don't know how to guide them because it's not enough for us to say pray. It's more so you have to find out, do they need medical attention, right? What are other factors that are instigating their mental health challenges? So that's where I came in, and I said, all right, if you guys are giving me the opportunity, I am going to take it on. Here are the things that I want to talk about. Are you guys okay with this? And they said yes, because we are seeing those individuals coming in. They're looking for help, and we don't know how to help them wholesomely. And so I ended up training two institutes at this moment, the faith-based institutes that I just mentioned, ISNA Canada and SKC, or Sayyida Khadija Center, where now the people who are the chaplains there, they and their staff are basic interventionists. They do suicide prevention. They will know how to have a conversation with someone who's not having a good day, who is having thoughts that are suicide related, or they're just generally depressed. So they'll know how to handle them better and to get them help from all angles, not just the spirituality and faith-based angle.
We're chatting tonight with Sadaf Sheikh,
Yes.
a physician who specializes in diabetes and heart, but has become very interested in mental health, particularly in the South Asian community. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back in just a minute. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. We're chatting tonight with a physician, Sadaf Sheikh, who specializes in heart and heart disease and diabetes, but has become very interested in mental health and reached out to me and said, you've got to do a show on mental health because it's a real issue, particularly within the South Asian community that she has specialized in the last couple of years. Sadaf, so let's take a big, huge, giant step back. What is mental health?
Mental health is a huge basic pie that we can sort of use an analogy with. It has a lot of components. It has a component of a medical perspective of mental health, which is meaning your hormones within the brain are aligned. They're as they're supposed to be in terms of their concentration. It also means the amount of stress that you have, are you able to cope with them? It also means you have time that you take out for yourself and do self-care. Self-care is such a big component in our mental health well-being that a lot of people don't even realize it. And I can talk about that a little bit later when we kind of go through and talk about the types of things that we should do for self-care. But mental health is really how and what allows us to function appropriately within our community. And some people are very high functioning with, challenges in mental health. And some individuals are debilitated because they have mental health concerns that no one is addressing, or they're not being addressed appropriately. So I want to bring to light the fact that mental health, as everybody knows, and I think it's picking up a lot of coverage, and there's a lot of education surrounding it now. It is quite important for us to function in society day to day. And once we recognize that, we know how to, help and treat and, basically isolate the concerns and work on them to better your well-being. And it
Lots of
has yes, go ahead.
Lots of people have been saying that mental health issues have really gotten worse during COVID-19. Do you think that's right?
Absolutely. The amount of messages that I get from individuals that are friends, that are family, that are, referrals that I get from different individuals, they are all about mental health. And they're struggling. And because of social isolation, because of all these nuances that we're dealing with, they're unable to cope because they are now away from everybody. And it's very difficult for them to manage, right? Their coping strategies are not all there anymore. They don't see friends anymore that were support systems or over the phone. For the most part, maybe you're all very busy and also very stressed out. So a lot of those components are happening. So the increase that I've seen personally has been quite a bit. And then I reached out to some of my fellow colleagues who are doing mental health practicing, and they said the same thing, that they have so many clients suffering right now, during the COVID period because of all the social isolation that we are doing, and which is for our own good, but these people don't have other coping mechanisms, right? They haven't recognized themselves to be somebody who has mental health concerns, or they've been underdiagnosed, or they're clinically diagnosed, but they have coping mechanisms that no longer are there for them. So a lot of challenges there.
Now, you said that your interest was because you were doing some research in the South Asian community for heart disease and diabetes, and you found out that a lot of people were complaining at the same time about mental health issues, and you became aware that mental health was a sort of an unaddressed issue. When did you do this research? Was this recently? Not during COVID-19, I presume it was before?
No, it was a few years before. We were hot into the seat of doing some research, and basically what ended up happening was we had dealt with populations that were pregnant females, and then we watched that pregnant female population throughout their pregnancy and then post-pregnancy through a study called START. And this was run by McMaster University. And through there, we had scales of depression questions that we had that allowed us to diagnose and see if there were people that required some mental health help. Because especially in the postpartum period basically refers to the period when the mom has given birth to 6 months, and there is a chance of that woman developing depression. And versus postpartum depression, but if they have postpartum depression, that can later on in life lead to depression itself. So we were actually going through that diagnostic scale, and we noticed a whole bunch of individuals had a lot of mental health concerns, especially when during the time of pregnancy, there is a lot of sometimes issues with family members, and especially the spouse, and where there is rage and there is irritation, because there's no understanding between each other with regards to the woman's hormones going up and down in that cycle. And so there's a lot of frustration, and sometimes during that time period is when abuse can occur between the husband and the wife. And we noted a lot of the times that we had...
Sorry. Let me interrupt you. I apologize. You're saying rage, irritation, and abuse during pregnancy?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So basically what ends up happening is the husband will have these concerns, will have difficulty connecting with his wife on certain parameters, and that does lead to rage, and it leads to irritation, and it leads to unhappy homes, and it leads to violence. Unfortunately, those were a lot of the cases that we were talking about and we were looking into. nobody wanted to press charges. They just wanted to vent and talk about it. And it was very frustrating because unless they do something, we can't do anything. So when those mental challenges were coming through and they said that this is what's happening to us, we wanted to kind of take a more in-depth look. And we did have, like, there were on occasion where I sent people packages that said, here is a survival kit for you. This is what you should be doing. And this is how you should be getting out of the situation if you are in a situation which is challenging for you and it's not good for you and it's mentally debilitating you. You have to figure out what you need to do next. So we gave them a number of steps that they had to follow to remove themselves from that environment and be safe, which was our primary concern. So we had to secretly deliver them packages that will tell them how to get help and who to call and how to keep themselves safe and keep their children safe. In certain regards, there were some issues with the kids that were involved as well, that were targets of the abuse as well.
It doesn't sound like it's a mental health problem for the female. It sounds like it's a mental health problem for the male.
Absolutely. But the thing is that because two individuals, especially if there's one person who's having a mental health concern, they are going to have a negative effect on another individual if they don't seek help, right? So these individuals, these women that were speaking to us, they were going into depression because they had no help. They had no one to reach out to, and they were suffering silently. And so that was very hard to see, but they didn't want to do anything about it, right? Because they were afraid if they're going to talk, they're going to be stigmatized, and who else do they go to? They have nowhere else to go. So it was a very difficult situation at that time, but we made sure that we geared them up, those who wanted to seek more help and know what to do, and those who didn't, we still sent them information in a very casual way, with their knowledge that this was going to be sent to them and with their approval that it was going to be sent to them so that they could do something about it. But the idea is that it stops there. We've done our part, but what happens to them after, right? Do they go and get the help that they need? And we really stress talking to their physicians and talking to their doctors who are taking care of them. But a lot of this mental health is very underdiagnosed in our communities because no one wants to talk about it. They don't want to air their dirty laundry, so to speak. But it's very hard because if you don't talk about it, it further worsens the state of mind that person has.
Right. And you were saying that it's challenging in the South Asian community because there's stigma associated with, as you say, airing your dirty laundry, talking about depression, talking about sexual orientation, talking about other issues. Why?
Mental health in general is looked at as somewhat of a negative thing. When people are suffering, and if there is someone who is suffering, they are stereotyped as weak, as someone who can't cope, and this should not be happening to you. Or there's a common thing, you're making too much of it, or you're acting stupid. Don't be like this. Don't be in your room all the time. Don't be this. There's a lot of this kind of conversation and context surrounding mental health because there's no, people think that there's no reason to be so depressed, so sad that you're not able to do something, to even function appropriately. And if you're a religious individual or a faith-based individual or a spiritual person, you are not allowed absolutely to feel depressed and think about having depression or having concerns mental health-wise, which is, very sad, actually, to be honest with you, which is why when I started talking about mental health, I wanted to reach out to faith-based institutes because these are the ones that are getting bombarded with individuals coming in and saying, we're having trouble. We're suffering from different things. Suicide thoughts, very, very high. When I went and I talked to individuals in faith-based institutes, the two that I'm with, they were very upfront and they said, do you know how many individuals come in and say, we have thoughts of suicide? We want to know what to do to help them because what we're saying is not enough. They're coming back and it seems like they need more from us and we can't offer that.
So you stress in what you've written to me, the role of spirituality and faith-based interviews and faith-based institutions in dealing with mental health. Is it a positive role they play or a negative role they play?
They play, right now, I think they can do better. But what they're doing right now so far is what they know. okay, what they're familiar with, and they're trying to help at their end. But remember, this is a whole pie, right? The mental health is a whole pie, and we need to understand all of the different parts of it. And one of the huge chunks of it is the medical aspect. Do they require medication because they are actually, they need to be diagnosed with a certain ailment that is mental health, surrounding mental health. So do they have depression? Do they have bipolar disorders? Do they have, different things? We have to isolate what the cause is to be able to help them better, right? Some of them may just have a bad day, which is fine, and they have someone to talk to, they'll feel better. But what about those individuals that are really suffering, but they don't have the wholesome or the holistic help that they require? So we want the faith-based institutes, we want all kinds of organizations, even to the point where at home, people should learn about mental health. They should learn how to combat conversations with individuals that are dealing with suicide, which are dealing with, I am very, very sad and I'm unable to perform certain duties. And there's a lot of concern for people. And if we cannot lend a helping hand or even catch the red flags, then we're doing a disservice, especially to people that live with us, unfortunately.
I would have thought that, faith-based community and spirituality would have assisted mental health. I think that to believe in an almighty, to believe in a life thereafter, the community of people that you go to your faith-based institution with. You commented about prayer. I think prayer is for me, it's like meditation. Shouldn't faith-based communities help people with mental health issues?
They do. And this is why they keep coming back, right? So when I hear, when I'm talking to these chaplains, they're telling me, we've got people returning and coming back with the same concerns, with the same issues, and we've told them what they should be doing. They should be praying, they should be doing, meditations, etc. But they're coming back. The reason that they're coming back is what these individuals are saying is helping them, but it's not resolving their problems. There's a loose end there. And that could be the fact that they require expert help, which means a medical expert help. Not
Are you
the
saying that there's
faith-based
this
only.
taboo about going to see a medical practitioner and admitting that you've got mental health issues?
Yes, there is. We do not see many individuals coming in for the most part. Now it's changing a little bit, but a few years ago, there was no mental health. I want to consult for mental health because I'm suffering. A lot of the times the individuals that, identify themselves as male, they are the hardest ones to accept the fact that if they are challenged with mental health, they're the hardest individuals to convince that they have concerns, okay? Because again, it's our community, it's our social upbringing. Men can have any problems. They're not supposed to, because they're strong and they're supposed to take that role, and they are supposed to, take on the burdens of the world onto their shoulders. What we tend to not understand is that they're also human beings, and they should not be told what your concerns are don't matter because you're a man, right? And I think that ideology needs to change for the most part. It should be okay for a man to have issues that they're suffering with. They should be able to talk to people about it, to professionals. This should be okay to cry it out. What's the problem? I don't really buy into those things because I think humans are humans at the end of the day, right? Same thing with individuals that are going through gender identification concerns, and they're identifying with a separate gender than what they were born into. They're having the same concerns. They're not allowed to change their gender. This is who they are. This is what they identify with. That's it. They're not allowed to change
they're not allowed to change their gender within the South Asian community, is what you're saying.
For the most part, yes. And in other communities as well. It's not looked upon as a positive thing at all whatsoever. And do
you think it should be?
You know what? With the challenges that I have seen, I think that there needs to be a better addressing of these concerns. You cannot shun somebody. It has to be a conversation, and you have to have a therapeutic means when you're having a conversation with someone who may be struggling, or maybe there is something that needs to be, unfolded, and you need to be giving them that respect to unfold that concern for them, and be, the ear that they may need to, maybe mesh out whatever they're thinking. Maybe it is a crisis that they're facing, right? But we need to be there for them. we can't take them away and say, sorry, this we don't deal with, and you need to straighten up, because there is a genuine concern that they may be having. So we need to talk about it. Same idea with, mental health care professionals like psychiatrists and physicians and nurses. They are not allowed to have a diagnosis, it seems, because as soon as they do have a diagnosis, they're considered weaker. But guess what? These people take care of us, and they're human beings. Should they not be treated in the same capacity as human beings? When I teach at the Humber College, and I'm teaching nursing students, and we talk about this assist workshop that we run for 2 days before COVID happened, obviously. But when I talk to them and I say, talk to me about, have you ever suffered from mental health concerns, etc. Have you had, thoughts of suicide? This is part of a program that we run. And I will tell you, so surprisingly, because they're in that capacity as nursing students, I get nothing from them with regards to a confession that yes, they're suffering, or there's something going on, and they have been dealing with a lot of trouble, and depression is part of it. They will not say a word to you. Why? Because they think that they're going to be judged, and they're not going to get the job that they're looking for, and because they're going to be considered weaker. But the moment that, we open the playing field and we go into different situations where we have a mixed gathering, where we have nurses, we have physicians, and we have other healthcare professionals, and we just have a casual conversation, and they know that, I'm a professor and not a medical doctor. When you take that away from that conversation, that, resultant conversation from them, the feedback that I got from them is so different, because people will disclose, because they feel comfortable, because they think that no one's going to judge them. So then they're open to having a casual conversation about their thoughts and about their, fears, and the fact that they are suffering. All of these things come into light. And so when I walk in now, when I'm talking to people, well, obviously post-COVID, I walk in and I say, listen, I'm an advocate for individuals who are in the healthcare field and who are suffering from mental health. I'm an advocate for them. Why? Because we require this. We're human beings. And then the whole line of the workshop changes, right? The whole line of the instruction and the feedback changes, because now they're open to having a conversation because they won't be judged. We create that safe space for them to have a conversation.
Chatting tonight with Sadaf Sheikh, a medical practitioner who specializes in heart disease and diabetes, but has become passionate, it would appear, about mental health. Stay with us. We're going to take a break and come back more with Sadaf in just a minute. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. We're chatting tonight with Sadaf Sheikh, who is a medical doctor, professor at Humber and another U of T, Humber and U of T, specializes in heart disease and diabetes, but has become very interested in mental health. Sadaf, you said that one of the keys is self-care. Tell us about self-care.
I am really passionate about self-care. Self-care is literally, the definition is just that. You're caring for yourself. I think that that self-care term has become very, very important, but we're still getting used to that idea. We don't take time for ourselves. And I think we don't understand how to take care of ourselves because we're so busy taking care of everybody else. In a family setting, I don't think anyone is used to taking time out to say, okay, I'm just doing me right now, and I'm going to go and take a bath. And just, I want to be disconnected for a little bit. I'm going to take my phone and put it to the side, and I'm just going to relax, and I'm going to just, do self-care in many different ways. That could look like dancing. It could look like taking a nice bath. It can look like having a nice, very, away from the phones and distractions kind of meal with a family member or a spouse or a partner. It could look like just meditation. It could look like going out for a dog walk, A lot of the times, we do not understand what it means to do self-care, which is where the problems arise. And we say we don't have time. We don't have enough time in the day to do that, which means for them to take time out for themselves it's not possible, cannot happen. But my thought is you can give 15, 20 minutes to yourself and do something that you love. because that rejuvenates you, that makes you resilient, and then you actually up your energy, right? You come back to 100%, and now you can give. You can't give when you don't have, and you can't work with something that has nothing to offer, okay? I can take care of everybody around me, but I cannot do that if I'm deficient in energy and compassion and passion, and literally the frame of mind is always in stress mode. I can't be my 100% with anybody else. So I have to learn how to be 100% with myself, make sure I'm resilient, make sure I have my energy powered up, take care of myself so that I can help other people.
So many
And
people
a lot of that,
think
yes,
their whole job is to take care of other people and don't really worry about taking care of themselves, don't give themselves time to take care of themselves.
absolutely. But like I said, it's one of those things, you can't help other people. You will burn out without taking care of yourself.
So what
And that's
secrets have
my
you got for self-care? It sounds like baths are one of the ones for you. What are the secrets for self-care?
secrets of self-care is you take 15-20 minutes and you do something that you enjoy, which means you have to have a relationship with yourself. You have to understand who you are. Okay. We tend to forget that. We become fixated in our roles that we play, but we don't talk about who we are, what we like, what we enjoy. Some of the stuff that we talk about in workshops is, I always ask all of my participants, what is a hobby? What do you like to do? And it makes them sit down and really think, which is, something very interesting, because they really haven't looked at themselves enough to know what they like and what they don't like, what their hobby looks like and what they enjoy. And so when I give them a few moments to think about it, they'll come up with something. I used to do this. And then it's like, okay, well, what happened? Oh, I had kids. Oh, I got, I had to take a couple of jobs. Oh, my work is so difficult and it takes up majority of my time. So this has left itself behind.
Sadaf,
And
do you
yes,
know yourself?
you know what? It was later in life that I've understood who I am, but I have taken the time to have a relationship with me.
How did you find out who you were?
So what ended up happening is, as most of the times, you come to a point where things are just not working out the way you want. And then you have to take a step back and say, okay, what's going on? And I was finding that I was doing so many different things, and I was just consumed in my day, doing things that, I had to get this deadline met, and I had to get this exam done, and I had to do this, and I had to do this. So a lot of responsibilities, but then there was no recharging for me. So I was starting to get burnt out. And so I got to a point where I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so much. And I don't know where I'm going with this. I don't understand what my pathway is. So I took a time out and I said, okay, I need to regroup and I need to fix this burnout first. And then I can do more and I can progress and I can maybe have clarity in where I want to go. And I took a long time. I took about 6 to 9 months to actually sincerely have a relationship with myself, where I tried different things. I tried pottery. I always wanted to do horseback riding. So at that point I did horseback riding and I loved it. Then I tried my hand at skydiving and I enjoyed it. So I thought, okay, this is really good. I'm a thrill seeker, so to speak. So I started jet skiing, and then I had done hang gliding and zip lining and all these types of things. And I continued to enjoy that. But my most favorite time that I've spent is with horses, and I loved it because that whole experience is amazing for me. So I got to know a lot about myself. And then, once you are comfortable in your company, then you understand that other people will be comfortable in your company. You have more to offer. So having the things that used to scare me were having a meal alone, or going to the cinema or the theater alone. And I did those things because I was like, let me just see what this is all about. And I realized, you know what? I can do this. I'm actually pretty fun by myself. Like, there's nothing wrong with being, by yourself doing these things and exploring. There's nothing wrong. And then, so I have had a journey, which I feel like I like to do different things and I like to explore, but I'm a thrill seeker. I like doing things that
So you've been hang gliding, you've been parachuting, you've been horseback riding, you've been jet skiing, you've been zip line. You are a thrill seeker.
I loved it. The next thing that I have in line is scuba diving, which is coming up. So we'll see how things go. But these are the types of things that I realized as I was going through, that it has been very imperative for me to understand who I am in order to be able to, flourish a little bit better. So now I'm here and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to give. So let's go and see what we can do for other people.
Okay.
But
So
self-care is huge.
let me ask you a question. You talked about stigma within the South Asian community.
Yes.
And I've had people on my show that have talked about that in the South Asian community and other communities as well. And also, a male dominance within the community. You've got your doctor, you're a physician, you're obviously a thrill seeker, you've achieved a whole bunch of different things. Your best friend who you introduced me to is a professor. What was different in your household, in your family, that allowed you to achieve all these things that may not be prevalent in a lot of South Asian families?
So absolutely. So even my best friend that you're speaking of, I don't know if we can drop names, but since we both know who it is, we basically come from very tight families, which means there's a lot of support that we get from our parents. And we are given that that opportunity to do what we love to do instead of being forced to do something that we don't like to do, and in terms of careers, etc. And we've had open conversations throughout in my family. Especially we could talk about anything with anybody. And that, I think, is the most important, because a lot of the times when we are not able to talk to somebody and we don't have family support, we feel alone and we can make mistakes, and or we don't know where to turn. So we just, become introverted to the point where we become dysfunctional. So in my household, there was a lot of support. Like, my parents have been aces. My sisters are amazing. When something goes wrong, we're able to catch it like this. You don't seem like yourself. What's going on? How's everything going? How's work? And we know about each other's lives to a great extent because we talk to each other about everything. So I think that flexibility and that communication and that family support makes you flourish, because think about it this way. You're in a garden, which is being there's a lot of good fertilizer there, and there's someone who's tending to it by, hosing it and giving it water. You're going to have no options but to flourish because you're in a happy medium, right? Now, if you go to the point where you are in a situation where there's no water given to this garden and there's no fertilizer given to this garden, you're not going to have very much of a garden, right? So the point is, you have to create your own greenery. It's not green on the other side. It's green where you water the grass, right? So you have to have that family setting, which is supportive of you, to be able to flourish and be able to be mindful enough to understand that something's going wrong with you. And then say,
sounds like the family setting is so critically important. How do we make every family like your family?
You know what? That's a very, very good question. And unfortunately, what it is just talking about being aware and talking about self-care. Okay, so we start there where we are talking about self-awareness, and we offer self-care to ourselves. And when we do that, we're able to help other people. And we have to have those open conversations and not be stigmatized by different things. Way back when, and I don't know, maybe somewhat still today, sex is a very taboo topic in the South Asian community. You shouldn't be talking about it at all whatsoever. You have to wait till you get married. But the thing is, we live in an environment which is so multicultural. We already know about it. So to hide it from our children or it doesn't make sense, because they already know so much. And when I'm coming across individuals that are, that I have that are young kids, that are family, they ask me all sorts of questions. Why? Because I have open dialogues with them. And it's okay. No question is wrong. Let me talk to you about it. And anything you have a problem with, we can talk about it. We can sort it out. That mindset has to be there, because the kids and the children that we have, they don't know where else to turn, right? So that's something which I find very, it's doable, but it's very difficult. So you have to change that mindset a little bit to say, if my children need me, I need to have an open communication, an open door policy. Whatever comes through, I should be able to manage. Instead of shunning it away, I should address it. So if someone's coming into me and saying I'm having a bad day, guess what? I will sit down and I'll say, okay, so tell me what happened in your day. And sometimes it's just to like take that off their shoulders to feel light, and I'm okay now, right? But if we let that build up, and that stress build up, and that aggravation build up, and that difficulty build up, that does lead to, you know, mental health challenges later on, because now we don't have a coping mechanism, right? We have to value human relationships, because human relationships mean a lot. It's very sad to see when people are on a dining table, everybody has their phones, right? But they're in a dining table, on a dining table with a lot of individuals that they know. Put the phone away, have a conversation. Like, please help yourselves, because it's wonderful to stay connected through media and through social media, et cetera, et cetera. But what about the people sitting right in front of you? Cannot, do away with the fact that you're taking time that is precious with them away because you're on your phone, because you're doing something else. So there's etiquette that we sort of lack when we're talking about phone usage and text messaging and all these things. Have a conversation. Let's open up those gates to have human face-to-face interactions, with social distancing at this point, but still the face-to-face is important.
No question. Face-to-face is critically important. And it's a pleasure and an honor to be chatting face-to-face with you, even though we're doing it virtually rather than in person. We're chatting tonight with Sadaf Sheikh, a medical doctor who wanted to talk to me about, talk to all of you about mental health. Stay with us. We're going to come back in just a minute after some messages with some concluding comments. Well, welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio. We're chatting with a medical researcher. She's not a practicing physician. She's a medical researcher. She specializes in heart disease and in diabetes, but of late she's been very involved in mental health. And we've had, I think, a pretty good, frank conversation about mental health issues in the wider population, as well as in her focus in the South Asian community. Sadaf Sheikh is her name. And Sadaf, have you got a couple of sort of summary pearls of wisdom on what people should be doing if they have mental health issues?
So first off, I think that if there is a concern where you feel like you're suffering, please visit a family physician right away. If you don't have a family physician, please go into a walk-in clinic. If you feel like you have anxiety that's beyond your control, or depression that's beyond your control, and or you're suffering from suicidal ideation, please go to the nearest ER as soon as possible. Look up different avenues for help through the Canadian Mental Health Organization, so cmha.org. You have lots of centers near you that have lots of free resources for you to utilize. Please utilize them. We've got a lot in the South Asian community as well. Khalil Center is highly specialized in mental health care giving. That's KHALIL. So I would like to reach out to those individuals who don't think that they have anybody to speak to. You do. There are lots of acceptance now with regards to having conversations about mental health and mental health concerns. Please reach out to somebody. Please reach out to a healthcare professional.
If people want to contact you, how do they do that?
You can actually visit my website. It's called mentalgenius.ca. I do a lot of different things on there in terms of prep, and you will see Assist as one of the workshops over there. I'll be happy to have you reach me through that. You can just email me, and I will try my best to direct you to where I can help you in the capacity that we are online, and or we can set up some avenue to have a conversation, and we'll talk. I'm very open to having conversations with individuals who are suffering and who think that they don't have anybody to speak to. You do. I'm one of the individuals that you are able to speak to. And if I'm, obviously with my work life and family life, if I am busy, I will point you in the right direction to where you can go and get further help or better help than myself.
Sadaf Sheikh, thank you so much for joining us tonight and telling us about mental health.
Thank
You
you.
know, if I could stress a couple of things that Sadaf has spoken about, she spoke about self-care, and I can't stress how critically important that is. As some of you know, I used to be in the pharmaceutical business, and I had so many lead investigators, Sadaf, for different clinical trials that I was involved in, tell me if we only exercised more, slept a little bit better, ate a little bit better, and had a little bit of fun in our lives, we'd not need a lot of the pharmaceutical products that we're testing and prescribing and otherwise. I also think that one of the things you talked about was spirituality. And I do think that whether it's prayer or meditation or quiet time, you know, sometime just to be quiet is so critically important. And then I think the third thing you talked about was, you know, almost removing yourself and having that time where you're just by yourself. I think that's so critically important. And then finally, you talked about, though, the opposite of that, personal relationships, and how personal relationships are so critically important, face-to-face interactions with people. And then finally, and probably, frankly, mostly important, you talked about how your family life was so critically important, that you had an open, supportive family. And, you know, study after study has shown how critically important good, strong families are to people's long-term mental health. So, Sadaf, thank you so much for joining us tonight and talking
Thank
about
you.
mental health issues. Really appreciate it. Well, that's our show for tonight in the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. I'm on every Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock on 960 AM, or you can get me streamed online at www.saga960am.ca, or you can get all my podcasts and video casts after the fact on briancrombie.com. Thanks for joining us. Good night. Thank you, Sadaf.
Good night. Thank you.